Welcome back to the ABC's special coverage of the federal government's carbon tax plan. Well, it's been a long time coming and there's been quite a few bumps along the way. But today, Julia Gillard unveiled a plan for what she's dubbed a clean energy future, with a healthy swag of handouts for households and big business. Let's take a brief look at the major parts of this plan. Australia's carbon price will begin at $23 a tonne 1 year from now. It's indexed to rise at 2.5% above inflation, so it will be more than $25 when the tax becomes an emissions trading system in 2015. 500 companies will pay the tax, raising $7.7 billion in the first year alone. Over 4 years, it will collect almost $25 billion. Business will pass on the cost to consumers, and Treasury expects that will push up the cost of living by almost $10 a week. To cushion the blow, the government will hand out generous compensation. More than half of the revenue raised will be handed to households. The tax-free threshold will treble to $18,000, meaning a tax cut for everyone earning under $80,000 a year. Then there's a round of lump sum payments starting next May. Family tax benefits will increase by up to $110 per child per year, depending on income. Pensioners and self-funded retirees will receive $250 for singles and $380 for couples. But there'll be some losers, with 1 in 10 high-income households worse off. For the big end of town, industry will get generous assistance. A $9 billion jobs plan will be set up to help companies that compete internationally. And a new $3 billion energy security fund will seek to cut the use of coal-fired power and make sure the lights don't go out in the process. In an admission that pricing carbon alone won't drive the cut in emissions, there'll be $10 billion Clean Energy Finance Corporation to dole out money for renewable projects. The government's target is still a 5% cut to emissions by 2020, but its long-term goal is more ambitious. It's now shooting for an emissions cut of 80% by 2050. All this will be expensive to run. The price of the carbon tax bureaucracy is almost $400 million. The bottom line is that the government's doling out so much money in compensation, it's spending more than it's raising, leaving the budget more than $4 billion in the red. So it's not too big a stretch to say that the Prime Minister's future is riding on this plan. I spoke with her a short time ago. Julia Gillard, welcome.
Thank you, Chris.
Now, is the aim of this plan to cut taxes or to cut carbon?
It's to cut carbon pollution and tackle climate change. And so by putting a price on carbon pollution and getting around 500 big polluters to pay that price, being sensible business people, they will find a way of innovating, of reducing the amount of carbon pollution they generate, and that will cut carbon pollution by 160 million tonnes in 2020, the equivalent of 45 million vehicles.
100 million tonnes of that, though, will come by buying permits to pollute from offshore, though, won't it? It won't come in Australia.
Yes, this is going to be an internationally linked scheme, and so it should be. I want our economy to transform to a clean energy economy, and I want us to cut carbon pollution at the lowest possible cost. And international linking is part of having the lowest possible cost. It's the way you protect Australian businesses, the way you protect international competitiveness, and therefore protect Australian jobs. Anyone who's telling you that they don't want an internationally linked scheme is saying to Australians, do this for a higher cost than you need to pay.
How do you think Australians will feel, though, that $3 billion worth of Australia's wealth will be exported overseas, and how can we be certain that what they buy overseas will be worth?
Well, certainly in the design of the scheme that we've announced today, for any credits that are bought from overseas, there will be rigorous processes to ensure that that's a quality credit and that there is a tonne of carbon pollution that is not going in the atmosphere attached to that credit. But Chris, if I can re-engineer your question, why should we pay more to get the job done of cutting carbon pollution than we need to? Why on earth would you do that?
Certainly, but I think most Australians might be a bit surprised to learn that, in fact, our emissions will rise till 2020. In fact, they'll double by 2050, even under an 80% reduction target.
Well, I think Australians probably have the sense, the intuitive sense, that the way in which our economy has developed is as our economy's grown, our carbon pollution's grown. So every year our economy grows, more carbon pollution. And that would happen literally till the end of time if we didn't take a step to decouple economic growth from growing carbon pollution. That's why you price carbon, to send a price signal to big polluters that the investment decisions they make in the future, the growth they make in the future, should be growth that is looking to clean energy sources and doing the job with less carbon pollution generated.
Is $23 a tonne the highest carbon price in the world at the moment?
Well, $23 a tonne, we believe, is the right starting price for our economy. We're making decisions for Australia. That's what the government's had its eyes on, our future, our economy. As we've made decisions about this scheme, we've picked a starting price of $23 because it will give us a smooth path to when we go to a full emissions trading scheme. And then, of course, with international linking, we basically take on board the international price.
The international price at the moment, though, if you're looking at the European Union, would be $17 a tonne.
But if you're looking at the futures market, at the market predictions of what carbon pricing will be at the time we move to an emissions trading scheme, you'll find that's $29, which is why we've picked a starting point of $23. So over the 3 years of the fixed price period, working effectively like a tax, we move smoothly to what we anticipate to be the price when we go to an emissions trading scheme.
You say the market is the best way of doing this, but in fact you've got a mix of things. You've got a market which covers part of the economy, and you've got direct action. So why isn't your direct action as inefficient as you say that Tony Abbott's is?
What we've got is a market-based mechanism, pricing carbon, and complementary measures. They're called complementary measures deliberately because they need the carbon pricing mechanism to do the work that we want done. So, for example, in our energy sector, through putting a price on carbon, we will be sending a message right throughout electricity generation that we want this done in a cleaner way. As a complementary measure, yes, we will take some special steps to retire the dirtiest coal-fired power stations out of the system, but the two work together as a transformation of our electricity system. Other people would suggest to you, well, you don't price carbon, and maybe you just walk around and say, oh, I think I'll shut that power station or that power station. That's not going to transform our whole energy sector.
But you are making a decision. You're going to shut a brown-fired coal station somewhere, probably Hazelwood, something like that. What happens to those jobs?
We are going to ask people in the energy generation sector to tender to us as to retiring of assets, and of course we will be looking to retire the assets that generate the biggest amount of carbon pollution. We'd certainly do that in a measured way over time so that we are bringing new technology, new clean energy into the electricity grid, so we've got energy security for Australians, and to the extent that we need to work with particular regions in the nation for that kind of structural adjustment, then we will, and there's $200 million set aside in the package for that kind of structural adjustment.
Why do you need to overcompensate people?
Well, for our lowest income Australians, take for example an elderly Australian who lives on a full pension, their budget is really tight. And of course we can model, the experts in Treasury can model the expected impact on them of us having put a price on carbon paid by the big polluters. But we know their budgets are tight, and so we want to give them that buffer of compensating them, assisting them 20% more than the expected impact of the carbon price.
But doesn't it just look then like income redistribution dressed up as a carbon tax?
Oh, I think what it looks like is what it is, that we've taken special steps and special care to make sure that our lower income Australians have sufficient in their pension or in their pay packet or through their family payments to make sure that the carbon price that they will experience in their lives, they have assistance for.
All right, a couple of quick things. The 6 cents a litre cut to the diesel fuel rebate, will that also be levied on mine, so they'll pay a carbon tax and that price as well?
Yes, for fuel that is used in mining activities, there will be a change in the fuel credit system so that they will feel the impact of that change, as well as...
Isn't that a double hit?
We want fuel generally used in mining and aviation to feel the effect of what is a carbon price, a shadow carbon price. You get there through a different mechanism by changing the fuel credit scheme.
Will domestic air travel costs rise?
Yes, you will see some flow-through impacts, and of course that's modelled into the anticipated rise in the consumer price index of 0.7% less than 1%. And of course, when we've designed the package of tax cuts and increases in family payments and pensions, we've done it on the basis that we want to assist people, knowing that we will face rises of 0.7% in the Consumer Price Index.
Finally, can you sell this? Does your job depend on this?
Well, the nation's future, needs to be a clean energy future. Now, I understand that people will write about the politics and the political contest, and people will talk about that on the TV, Chris. So that's for you to do. What my eyes are on is that clean energy future for this country. We've had a long and difficult debate. Now is the time to get this done. I announced the package today. I'll bring it to the Parliament. We'll legislate it, and it will start on the 1st of July next year.
Julia Gillard, thank you.
Thank you.